Hey everyone, just a heads up on today's video. I sat down to record and I got a couple of packages delivered. There was construction going on outside, so I tried my best to edit around it. I threw in a little, like one of our regular sound effects and stuff, but there were too many edits, and so if things are a little jerky, I apologize. I promise this video is definitely still worth the watch though, and thank you for understanding. Watch on Movie Mavens, and let's talk about some good analog horror. Hello, Movie Mavens. Welcome back to the B Movies channel. My name is Bailey, and I put the B in B Movies. So very excited, like I mentioned last week, super excited to be in the midst of fall. Where I am, it's not very cool, but the flavors of pumpkin spice and apple cinnamon are in the air in all of our food, and so I can't help but just really feel very fall-esque. So this week, super excited to go over what all we have on tap, and I'm really excited to do a deep dive into one of my new favorite analog horror series. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into what we covered this week and all that jazz, as well as a bite-sized Sunday teaser. So to kick us off, this week we talked about some of my favorite comedy specials, whether they be straight stand-up, untraditional stand-up. We have everything from Otsko to Maria Bamford. Maria Bamford? Maria Bamford. I don't know why I went in so hard on the last syllable of her last name, but to Maria Bamford's special. There are some good ones on here. There's a variety of comedians, so whether you just like a straight punchline, you're into more of Mike Birbiglia's like narrative performative comedy, Maria Bamford's, if you watched her show or you're familiar with her comedy special is very unique and it's just done in a very Maria Bamford way. And so there's a lot of really cool specials for you to dive into there. We talked about Jennifer Coolidge. Come on, I don't need to even do a deep dive. You know her, you love her. I talked about some of my favorite movies, highlighted some of my favorite work of hers. She is a true American icon and deserves to be treated as such. We talked about the Nick and Jessica Variety Hour. A while back, I actually found it at Dollar Tree, and I knew I wanted to do something with it, and then Jamie French did a video about it, and I was like, okay, I definitely have to watch this for myself. It is next level. Yeah, you can read about that. We won't go into that here, but you can read about the Nick and Jessica Variety Hour. Nick and Jessica obviously being Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson, who were married at the time. And they tried to do a 70s variety show. And you can imagine how that goes. We also talked about my fall playlist. So I'm the kind of girl, and this should be a surprise to no one. So I actually have two playlists. I have a fall playlist and then specifically a Halloween playlist that I rotate between throughout the fall. And I say fall, I start listening to my Halloween playlist usually in August. But I have two separate playlists that I rotate between, and I share my playlist, give you some of the tracks that just are quintessentially fall to me, like Polaris is Waiting for October. If you grew up with the Adventures of Pete and Pete, you're very familiar with them, to stuff like The Both. So yeah, so check that piece out. And then we also talked about, and this is going to be our deep dive today, Midwest Angelica. If you've not watched it yet, it's so cool. We have officially, the creators have confirmed that all of the videos that are currently on their page, that this is Act 1, and that the last video, which again, we will get into all of this shortly, that the last video named Stages, this marks the end of Act 1 of Midwest Angelica, which to me alludes to the fact there is hopefully more coming. And I really hope so, because this series is very cool, very innovative, and again, we'll deep dive into it momentarily. But I just really like what they're doing. I really like what they're seeing. And it's clear that the creators of Midwest Angelica love analog horror, love horror movies, and I can't get enough of it. I've already watched it through 2 or 3 times. For my research. Before that, I watched it through a time or 2. It's so good. We all know I'm a sucker for analog horror, but I rarely watch them through multiple times. I've only really done it, the only other one, just to be honest, that I've done it with is Gemini Home Entertainment. But I've watched this one through several times, and I'm really looking forward to the future of it. But before we get to Midwest Angelica, let's cover one of the last pieces of business that we have here, which is Bite Size Sunday. So the teaser for this Bite Size Sunday, before I even say what I'm going to say, yes, I'm very proud of myself for this, and you are either going to get it or you're not, and you're going to think I'm crazy. But hopefully the people that get it will think it's funny like I did. So, the hint for this week's Bite Size Sunday is: the power of Christ compels for you to be entertained. Again, if you get it, I think you'll appreciate it. If you don't, those are just words. I would also like to apologize. I don't know why the B-movie sign, anytime I hit record, it stops focusing, but then when I'm like setting up to record, it is focused. So this is the same B-movie sign. I just don't know. I don't know what's happening here, and I apologize. But yeah, so that's our Bite Size Sunday for this week. Look out for that. Subscribe to the B-Movies channel if you haven't already. If you're here and my intro has already wowed you, go ahead and subscribe, as well as please be sure to follow the B-Movies channel on Instagram. It's just at B-Movies channel. That is where we do our daily posting. So every single day I post what the blog is for the day, and then do a weekly roundup on Friday. That's where Bite Size Sundays live as well. And Bite Size Sundays, just to clarify, don't live on the blog. They only live on Instagram. So you can only find them on Instagram over just at B-Movies channel. And yeah, so be sure to follow us. Be sure to subscribe. Everything else, I'll ask you to do it again at the end of the video. Do a nice little bookmark. But yeah, so outside of that, that should be all of the housekeeping that we have today. So just to recap one more time this week, we're talking Midwest Angelica, my fall playlist, the Naked Jessica Variety Hour, Jennifer Coolidge, my favorite comedy specials. And you can find all of our blogs. It'll be linked in the description down below, as well as my Instagram, Elliot's Instagram, the B-Movies Instagram, which I'll give you at the end as well. All of that can be found in the description box below in every single video. And so to read our blog, it's just bmovies.blog. That's our website. And again, it's in the description box of every single video in case you forget, or in case you just want to do a quick copy and paste. All of that info is readily available for you. So, without further ado, let's dive into Midwest Angelica. So, I'm not kidding I was not kidding when I said earlier that I've fallen in love with this series. I think it is masterfully done. There's a lot of, when you're watching throughout, why I said it's clear that, like, the creators, at least in my opinion, love horror series, love analog horror series, love horror movies, love sci-fi movies, especially like 80s horror and sci-fi, 80s and 90s, is because throughout there are pieces, and I'll note them throughout, we're going to go video by video, but there are pieces where I'm like, oh, this reminds me of Gemini Home Entertainment. This reminds me of the Mandela Catalog. This reminds me of a segment from VHS. This reminds me of Slither. But it's not, it's one of those cases where you can see their influences, but they're still creating original content. It's not that they're just ripping off other series. It's just, it's clear that they love horror. But they're still creating something entirely new, entirely just, I'm enamored by it. And so I think it's a wonderful watch. So, yeah, so just to get us started, because we're going to go video by video, Midwest Angelica tells the story, and what we know so far is that there is some sort of alien entity that has crashed into So, yeah, sorry, I had a package delivered. So, all we really know is that some sort of alien entity has crashed to Earth, and it's clear it is hostile, and it is part of some sort of hive mind / it itself it is the nexus of the hive mind. I was about to just use the same word for hive mind 8 times, but it's either the nexus of the hive mind or it is a part of a larger hive mind. So to start off, just one note up top. I'm going to use Alpha and AZ001 interchangeably at times. Alpha is part of AZ001. Alpha is the part of AZ001 that fell to Earth. So it detached from AZ001, and it's known as AZ001 Alpha. They're the same thing. Hang on. I got a package. Anyway, Midwest Angelica. So, like I said, Alpha, it's AZ001 Alpha. It's part that broke off. If I use them interchangeably, just know Alpha is just part of the AZ001 prime. Like, that's the same thing. It's just the detached part. So, let's go ahead and let's dive in, and let's start taking this video by video. So the first video, Call Now, essentially, in my opinion, it serves as a setup for the series. But in, like, that 80s and 90s way of, like, call in to get these videotapes, in my opinion, this video is not canon in the sense of, I don't think this infomercial is part of the series. I think it is the introduction to the series. I think that they chose to frame, instead of a trailer, that they made a very 80s, 90s VHS infomercial. Because this is the thriller. This, what they're describing as the video, this is the video. So I think it's a really cool introduction. Hooked me from the start, because we'll get into this in a minute. But I actually did not start Midwest Angelica. I was not exposed to them from the beginning, and we'll get into that in a minute. But when I went to go watch the full series, this video had me hooked. So, after Call Now, we get Home, which is the first actual, in my opinion, video of the series. And Home, it's very reminiscent of like a 60-minute segment, or like the Curse of the Blair Witch documentary that they made to like supplement the lore of the Blair Witch. You could get it with the VHS tape. I had it with the VHS. Sorry. No, I swear, I'm like, I'm going to record today, and it's like, all the hell is breaking loose in the world outside of me. So, back to Home. So, Home is, so it's like reminiscent of the Curse of the Blair Witch documentary, a 60-minute segment. We're introduced to AZ001, and initially it's presented as like some sort of giant, they describe it as like a corpse in the atmosphere. It's like some sort of organic entity, but it doesn't appear to be alive. But just remember AZ001. Just remember that throughout, because when we come to my theories, you'll need to remember that. So we're also introduced to Dr. Ray O'Connor, who he will be a recurring character throughout this series. And he says that initially they thought it was some sort of corpse, but it seems as though the object is projecting brainwaves. And so it's either in some sort of hibernation or comatose state, but that there are waves emanating from this entity. And then we also get some close-up videos. And I will tell you, AZ001 definitely has a face for radio. Think of like a tree with tentacles coming off of it. It's mixed with kind of a face hugger from Alien. Like, it's not cute. And so, after seeing photos, after finding these waves, we then learn a hunk of AZ001, aka AZ001 Alpha, has actually broken off from this entity and is now hurtling towards Earth. Once Alpha makes contact with our atmosphere and it lands on our planet, it becomes abundantly clear that whatever this is, it's not good. And it's also clear that when humans come into contact with this entity, the result is either fatal or it spreads some sort of infection. And that is unclear. It's unclear which at the end of this video, because we just see a gentleman who kind of is mutating and is clearly very ill. But we don't know anything yet about this, so it's presented as either fatal, like when it touches humans, it's not great, is the gist of it. So then in our technically third video, I would say second video of the series, Attention, we're met with the equivalent of one of those, if you remember, back in the days when cable was still commonplace, and we had like the mesothelioma compensation ads. This is essentially one of those. And so the announcer states that anyone living within the counties listed has potentially been exposed to a pesticide that's being tested, and they are encouraged to reach out to their doctor because this pesticide can cause symptoms like insomnia, sleepwalking, like entire personality changes, things like that, just casual. And so it's clear these people haven't been exposed to any sort of pest controlling chemicals, but rather they have been exposed to Alpha or one of its subsidiaries, and there is some sort of infection spreading. At least that's what we can believe at this point, or at least infer. So then next up we have Starfield, and Starfield is actually the first video of Midwest Angelica that I saw, because I had my first exposure to Midwest Angelica on Baz's channel. And if you don't follow Baz, he's great. He reacts to horror content. He is one of the creators that actually got to go to the Five Nights at Freddy's set, so he's been releasing some cool content about that. And the closer that it gets, he's going to do like a behind the scenes video, because he has some videos and things that he hasn't been able to show quite yet. So definitely subscribe to him. He's trying to get to 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I think he's awesome. And that's how I'm finding out about some of these series, so definitely check him out. And what I also appreciate about Baz, and I think I may have said this before, is he doesn't just sit there and react to content. Like, he actually provides theories and additional opinions, and he subscribes to these creators, he pumps them up, he comments, he engages with them. And so definitely give him a follow, for sure. But Starfield is actually the video I saw in one of his React videos. And I was like, I have to go back to Midwest Angelica because this is incredible. Because it essentially watches just like a horror short. And so it's very, very cool. But in Starfield, we're given a taste of how powerful AZ001/Alpha are. Like, we see that it's a very hostile entity. We now understand that its full mission is to assimilate the entire human race into this hive mind body. And to me, it's very similar to, it's kind of a similar idea to Alex Bale's The Muse, where it's like a mother wants to assimilate. Yeah. If you're familiar with that, or if you haven't read that piece over on the bmovies blog about The Muse, very similar goals. It's like how mother wants to assimilate everyone in. And so what happens is we essentially see what appear to be two brothers, or two people that are related, are woken up in the middle of the night. There's a bunch of commotion outside. They don't know where their dog is. Obviously, all hell breaks loose. One of the brothers is grabbed by Alpha, and we see, to me, it's very similar to in Slither, like when Grant is slithering through the farm. We see his brother, and then we get a message on the screen saying that his brother has been assimilated. He runs inside to check on his mother. There's just kind of like blood and God knows what kind of goo oozing. We get it flash on the screen, infection. And then we get a wide shot and we see how massive this thing is, how fast it's spreading, and we begin to understand how truly dangerous AZ001/alpha are. This video also gives me the most Gemini home entertainment vibes. It's very similar to me. It was very similar to watch, especially their longer videos, where it shows how the creatures within Gemini home entertainment spread. And so after Starfield, there should be no misunderstanding about how powerful and how dangerous this infestation is. So then we skip to Starkill, which is the next video. And if we didn't fully understand in Starfield how bad this situation is, there's no mistake in Starkill. Starkill shows that humans are fully contaminated by this infection host, whatever you want to call it, within milliseconds. Milliseconds. So whatever nasty stuff Alpha is spreading, not only is it a contagion, but it seems to be intelligent, which confirms that this is some sort of hive mind. It's part of a bigger body, most likely AZ001 prime. And they don't call it prime, by the way. I'm just calling that to like differentiate. So basically, if you weren't thinking it before, we're screwed. This thing is so easily spread, and contamination is within seconds. Sorry, milliseconds. So if you're not already getting goosebumps, just wait. So next up we have Phantoms. So in Phantoms comes one of my favorite medias implored by the Midwest Angelica creators, which we'll get to momentarily. But in Phantoms, we're introduced to Dr. Andrew Evans, who comes directly into contact with AZ001. Like, he visits what I infer to be the farm from Starfield to see this entity. And after coming into contact with it, Dr. Evans appears to start coughing, becomes ill, and then starts acting strangely around his peers, etc. So once they've returned to home, which is the kind of like the home base HQ operating lab for this specific series and that investigates this entity specifically, Dr. Evans at one point gets up to go to the storage room where samples from AZ001 are stored. And then he goes to refill the water cooler. And hang on. And so Dr. Evans goes to the storage room where there is a sample from AZ001 that was collected from the previous video, and then seems to go back to the water cooler to replace it, and is gone for a really long time. And you can see where this is going. Dr. Evans comes back with 2 cups of water, one for him and one for Dr. O'Connor from the previous video. Not the previous video, but a previous video. And then soon after, Dr. Evans begins to mutate at his desk, leaves again for a storage room where he is fully mutated into this like extended neck, extended limb, thumb looking gross dude, where he is then taken care of by security / personnel within home. Yes. A lot happens in Phantoms. It's one of the longest videos. Yeah, it's so long story short, it's clear Dr. Evans has contaminated the water cooler, and then he brought Dr. O'Connor a cup of the contaminated water. So, yeah. And then Dr. O'Connor goes missing, essentially, and can't be reached by home personnel. So it feels great. So yeah, so that's where we leave in Phantoms. And Phantoms implores this really cool type of interaction that I haven't seen in other analog horrors, where to reenact some of the events, they have like a little box with different circles that represent Dr. Evans and Dr. O'Connor, and it shows him moving through the map. It is almost like Pac-Man looking, and it's so cool because it's so simplistic, but it's so brilliant and it's so easy to follow, like exactly where Dr. Evans moves, and you don't really have to second guess what happens throughout these interactions because it's very spelled out. There are captions at the bottom, and it's just very easy to like follow the blue dot and the red dot and see exactly what unfolds. And so I think that's a very clever thing to do. I really enjoyed it, and I just really want to give them kudos because I think that's a very innovative way to do a reenactment within an analog horror series without having to try to like write a full script, select actors. I just think that this is really innovative. So then we have Bulletin, and Bulletin's only about 30 seconds or so long, and it almost looks like a local 58 bulletin or like their menu screen. And at first, Bulletin may seem insubsequential to the storyline, but Bulletin is actually a lot more important than you think. Because at the end of the video, there's a list of names of those who have been working with the church and volunteering, and Ray O'Connor's name is towards the bottom. As in Dr. O'Connor. As in the Dr. O'Connor who can't be reached from home and more than likely drank infected water, has been going to a church where they may or may not take communion and have baptismal water as a steady congregation. So he has been helping in the Pine Lane church services. Yeah. So it may seem at first, you're like, this video's odd to include, but it actually very much sets the stage for the last two videos of Act 1. So the next video up, and these videos were just released a couple weeks ago. There was a bit of a break, but we have our last two videos of Act 1. So Azazel, if I'm butchering that, I apologize, is our next video, and it acts as our penultimate video for Act 1. So we start with a string of missing person flyers. They, if I'm not mistaken, these are names that are from Bulletin, that were all people helping with the church. And then we cut to a 911 call where someone says they've stumbled upon some sort of human sacrifice next to the church. Remember that. And officers Andrew Webster and Sam Page report to the scene to see what's going on. So Officer Webster seems to find these photos that confirm that those who are assimilated believe themselves to be like the apostles of an entity named Azazel. And it's very clear that it's a hive mind. It's like Slither, it's like other alien bodies we've seen where they are all interconnected. And they describe him as like this immortal being with infinite power. And They talk about, like, him being made of stars and, like, stars within them and things. So it's very clear that this is the same entity. This is AZ001, which obviously, at least in my opinion, AZ Azazel 001. So it's this entity. They are the same. Azazel and AZ001, at least in my opinion, are the exact same. They are the same entity. And so what's happening is people are being assimilated into this alien celestial body. And it may not just be an alien being, it may be some sort of Titan god type entity. So, again, not great. Not great. So, for Officer Page, not a lot is given on his investigation of the altar and things. We just know there's one photo and it's him standing at the entrance of some sort of cave, and that's apparently the last image or confirmation of him being alive, really, that we have. There's been no body recovered. He has not been seen since, which is obviously a recurring theme within this. A lot of people tend to go missing that have involvement with AZ001. So then we cut to Officer Webster, who finds this gnarly object outside, and it seems to be fleshy or some sort of organic material that has humans attached to it. Very similar to, I know I keep referencing Slither, but in Slither, if you know, towards the end when Grant evolves into that massive pink blob fleshy creature and people are just attaching themselves to it, that's what this looks like, is some sort of creature, altar, but humans are basically just society style mutating and attaching themselves to it. Webster tries to run, and he seems to be overtaken by something or someone. And ultimately, Webster's fate is redacted. There are several pieces of text that are redacted throughout the videos, and especially this video. But by the context clues and additional information, it's clear that he didn't make it out of the forest. That him in some state was recovered, and so we can infer that whatever overtook him ultimately made it where he did not leave that forest. In the final text in the video, it states that there's a CIA agent who is basically taking over this entire situation, and the police department in this area have basically been gag ordered to keep their mouths shut and just to pretend like nothing's happening. And then finally, the last video we have of Act 1 seems to be a breakdown of Starkill's plan for domination. And Starkill, this is the only part I'm a little unclear on. I think Starkill and AZ001, I believe they're the same thing, or Starkill is AZ001's plan. I'm not very sure. That's the only part I'm a little unclear on. And I mean, honestly, if I probably went through and watched again, just without taking notes and researching, it would probably click, but that's the only part that's not clicking in my brain. But essentially, the plan for domination is to infest planets, species, take them over, find intelligent life, and use them as vessels for infestation. And it seems as though the ultimate plan is to fully infest and infect the entire United States. and essentially eliminate the human race as we know it. And instead, everyone is infected and assimilated within this creature. So, and on that same note, we're through, I believe there are 4 stages in the video, and we're on stage 4. Stage 3, it turns out, was what we saw within the previous video, Azazel, where they build altars and these creatures are created and worshipped. And so we learned that all of the events that we saw in the previous video were part of this plan for domination. So as of right now, they are like par for the course on fully infesting the entire US. And then we get a haunting depiction of within the year how much the infection could spread. And I mean, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So that's where we are so far. So my theories are, I already shared one. I believe AZ is short for Azazel. I believe they're the same thing. I believe that they are the same creature. I believe they are the same being. Secondly, if you notice that I said it seems as though Webster is overpowered by something or someone, there's the silhouette of a man seen at the end of Azazel. I believe this is Dr. Ray O'Connor. I believe that that's who this man is because if you remember from Bulletin, Dr. Ray O'Connor has been volunteering at a church. The same church, in fact, that officers were called to in Azazel, where they discovered the altar. The caller said it was right by the church. This is the same church. So, I believe the man at the end of the video is Dr. Ray O'Connor. That's what I believe. I believe that he has become this really key player for AZ001. And I believe that he is responsible for the incidents at the church, for the missing people. I think that Dr. Ray O'Connor is going to be a key player in Act 2. But those are my theories. I think that AZ001, AZ is short for Azazel, and then that the man at the end is Ray O'Connor because it's the same church from the Bulletin that we know he's been volunteering at. We know that these missing people are affiliated with him, and so that's what I believe. I think that the man at the end of the video is Ray O'Connor, and I think that he's going to be a key player for Act 2. So, again, please subscribe to Midwest Angelica. Please share their videos. This series is so good, and I think that it's really not getting as much attention as it should be. I know that definitely I've definitely seen some view rises on their, some increased, I don't know why I said it like that, some increased views on their videos recently, but still, like, please subscribe, share, and like their content because this series is so well done. It's so cool, and I really want to see where it goes. I've said it before and I've said it again, and I'll say it again. YouTube is really proving to be a main contributor to the future of horror because I think all of these independent creators are going to continue to make films based on their content or just horror films in general. And I really think that we need to look to YouTube for the future of horror because I think we're going to see a lot of horror content start coming out of YouTube on the big screen. So, that's Midwest Angelica so far at the time of recording this video. I'm pretty sure because this video is only a couple weeks out from Act 1, if Act 2 comes out after I've recorded this, I'll definitely cover it because I'm very involved with this series. I'm very into this series. I'm very involved with, I have nothing to do with Midwest Angelica. Throwing myself into content that I did not create. I'm just enamored by this series. I'm very taken by this series. So I will definitely update the piece on the blog. By the way, I have also updated pieces for other ARGs we've done before. So Liminal Land, Welcome Home, Project Earth, and Midwest Angelica is the other one, but like we obviously it has already been updated. All of those I am updating as we find things out, and I will also update. I know that the Muse is coming out at some point this year as well, so I will update the Muse piece once we have the last act of the Muse. So just get excited, and again, don't discount YouTube horror because I really do think it's going to be a major part in the future of horror. So, with that, please like, subscribe to the channel, leave comments. I love to see comments. I'm going to try to start doing longer videos like this because you guys really like the longer videos. And so we'll start doing deep dives, even if we have to do deep dives on multiple topics. I love talking to you guys. At first, I was so nervous, but honestly, I've started to enjoy our time together. So I'm looking forward to October. Again, get excited because we have some really cool stuff planned. I have some really great videos planned. I have some great costumes planned. I'm gonna just spoiler every October video. I will be in a different costume, so I have some really exciting stuff planned. And so yeah, so just be sure to follow me on Instagram, Lisa_Frankenstein_. Be sure to follow Elliot on Instagram at reading.with.red. Follow the bmovies channel on Instagram at bmovieschannel. And then go to our blog, bmovies.blog. This is where everything I talk about in these videos, I have written full pieces over. So if you don't want to hear me just talking for 40 minutes, got you covered. You can read me and read in my voice for a few minutes instead. So yeah, I will see you guys next week. And now all that's left to do is fade to black.